In this video we're just gonna start an example, practical example from start to end, and for that we can start from CorelDRAW, and we're gonna just have a quick preview on how we can use CorelDRAW for initial design and sometimes just converting different type of file, make it suitable for laser processing. So we can start a new file here. So in this application we have one bitmap file which was drawn by some kind of like a pen or something, scanned, and as you can see this is just a bitmap and it's just a bunch of pixels. So if we want to engrave this we can do that, but we can't do anything for cutting because basically we don't have a line here. So in order to create some lines we can use a tool in CorelDRAW which is a quick trace, and when you do quick trace we just trace some lines on the outlines of our shape. So we go to object properties, we don't want to just do any filling, so we select no fill, and for outline we always use hairline, and then we right click on group and then select on the outline, we delete it, and then select on the actual bitmap, we delete it. So as you can see we can find some sort of lines here, and we can use these lines either for cutting or engraving. So the next step would be to change the color of those part of the graphic. You want to just do different processing on the laser machine. So we just selected the outline and we changed the color into the blue color, and the last step would be to export this into DXF AutoCAD. Just name it as some name, we can just find it later on. Export, and we will be asked for the export version. We have to select AutoCAD 2000 and export text as curves and export bitmap as bitmap files, and we press OK. The next step would be to go to the laser cut engrave software and import this DXF in the laser software. We import and a DXF which we already processed it in CorelDRAW, and as soon as we import the DXF it shows us a window with uniting the lines. Uniting the lines, especially when you import DXF, is very important because when we convert it any continuous care in DXF, it breaks it down into different parts. So before bringing or importing it into laser software, we can unite the lines, and the default setting is 0.01 for tolerance. You just press OK on that, and you can see the imported graphic. when we click outside we can see the actual line colors. In our previous design we selected different colors for this outline line, and it just will be affected also in the DXF, so we automatically have 2 layers here, and we can select, you know, the particular portion of the file, the graphic, and take it to some other layers if you wish to. So in this case you can see is a double line here, and we don't want to have double line, so we just select one line and delete it. We check the size by selecting the whole graphic, click on shortcut size, and it shows us 38.4 by 29.463. We change the size to 40 and click on the other number on the right square to change the size proportional, and press OK. So sometimes when you change a layer it will take it to some other mode, so we want to just cut the outline in cut the outline and then engrave inside, or what we can do, we can engrave part of inside, and since we have very thin lines here we still can use cut mode, but instead of cutting through we can use a very low power and high speed to just draw the line and leave the marks on the material. So what we can do, we can select the whole thing, take it to one layer, and just select this part, take it to another layer, the eye part, and take the outline into another layer. So here we have 3 different layers. So the black layer definitely you want to cut, the blue layer you want to engrave, but the green layer we still want to use cut but with lower power. So we choose 50 millimeter speed and the power 7, and since we use lower than 20% we use a corner power same as the actual power, and we press OK. And then for the engraving part we choose 800 speed and the power 30% and the scan gap 0.07, and press OK. And then we check the sequence of our layer. As we said, we always want to do engraving first, so we select the engrave layer, we move it up so it will engrave the blue eye, and then it's just marks with cut mode with high speed and low power on the green lines, and then it just cuts with higher power and lower speed, which is in the case we have to change the speed into 13 and the power to 50% because we want to cut through. And this particular material we use it as a 1/8 inch plywood, and this setting it just works with this kind of material. For different material we need to use different settings, and press OK. So we check all the layers outputs are activated because all of them are just written yes underneath, and all of them is just only one time. And engrave setting is 800 with 30% power. Cut is actually the low power cut is 50%, 50 millimeter per second speed and 7% power. And the cut through part, which is the outline, is 13 speed and 50% power. Right? So we can make multiple object by copying this object, by taking the whole thing. If you want to cut multiple objects in one sheet, we select the object, we take it to the left bottom corner, we use copy, we use whatever the rows we want to just have as a 5 rows, maybe like 10 columns, and the gap in between, which is between the finishing limit of the left side and the starting limit of the right side. So we use like a 1 millimeter for each, and then we press OK. We have a multiple objects here by 5 rows and 10 columns. So this blue dot, this is actually the starting point of the laser head, and after the laser finish the processing, goes back to the same position. And also there is one option here on the right side, you can see an immediate and with a checkbox. If we want to just if we want the laser machine to follow the position where we put the graphics in the coordinates, we always uncheck this immediate. So when we uncheck it, wherever we put the whole graphic, suppose I put it almost in the center, the laser machine always starts from this, just does the processing and finish the processing in the same location, and we won't have any trouble for positioning it. But if you have some sort of like single sample, we can always use immediate checkbox and transfer it to the machine. And in this mode we can start from anywhere inside the working area, as long as the size of the graphic allows us to not exceed from the limits of the machine. And that is immediate mode with the immediate checkbox checked before transferring the file. But as I said, for multiple and the jobs which want to repeat every time, and we don't want to just mess up with the position, we just have to have some sort of positioning jig, or we just always place a material in the same position. We use unimmediate with the immediate box unchecked, and then we transfer the file to the machine. As we said, it's a new file, so we click on the white area and we download current, and we name it as multi-bird. As we mentioned before, the name should not exceed in 8 characters if we want to see it in the machine, so it doesn't allow us also to enter more than 8 characters. So we press OK, and it will transfer the file to the machine. And the larger files usually takes more time for downloading the file. and we hear beep from the machine. And you just have to remember that before transferring the file, the machine has to be on and the communication cable has to be connected. So that is actually transferring the whole file. And for this application, since we can't cut all of these because of our time limit, so what we do, we just undo this. You can use this undo and redo also. So we just undo this and we turn it to only one bird. We just use unimmediate with the immediate checkbox unchecked, and we place this in the right bottom corner, and we download it, and we click on the white area because this is a new file. We don't want to replace it with the existing file in the machine's memory. We press download current and we just make it bird 1 and OK, and it's transferred to the machine. So in our next part we move to the machine side, and we will see how to see this file and start the laser processing for this particular file. So starting using the machine, we need to power up the machine, and for that we have to make sure that all the accessories is connected properly, and we have to make sure there is nothing on the way of the laser head when it's moving on the working table and working area. And we just rotate and release the button we have for on off, and as soon as we release the button, the laser head starts moving to the right top corner. And the next thing we need to decide is, depending on the actual project that you're working with, we want to decide what kind of table we want to use. If it's only engraving, we can use the same solid aluminum table and place our material on the table and just start working. But if you have some sort of cutting with engraving, so we can use either the honeycomb tabletop or aluminum blade tabletop. This is aluminum blade tabletop, and the honeycomb tabletop is this one, and the honeycomb tabletop is used for cutting soft material, like a thin material which can stay flat by itself. And the aluminum table, it will be used for more rigid material, and the cutting effect on the aluminum table is much better than the honeycomb table because we have less reflection effect to the material, because we have less surface beneath the material. For putting and installing the tabletops, either the honeycomb or aluminum blades, there are 4 holes on these tabletops, and there are also 4 holes on the aluminum table, anodized aluminum table. And we could either just put the tabletop on top of the aluminum table, or if you want to just prevent any kind of movement of these tabletops when the laser machine is operating, we can use 4 screws, which it's in the toolbox, and screw these tabletops to the aluminum table. and if you use 2 screws will be enough just to hold it down and prevent from any kind of movement. Before just placing these tabletops on the anodized aluminum table, we need to create a space for that, and for this purpose you can use the crank handle and just move the aluminum table down and just place the tabletop and adjust the holes and just tighten the screws. For this application, since we have cutting and it's a rigid material, we prefer to use aluminum blade tabletop. And as we mentioned, there's also 4 holes on 4 corners of this tabletop, and it can be screwed in to the anodized aluminum table. Then the next step would be to place the material on the table. We're going to use a piece of 1/8 plywood and place it on the tabletop, and then we jog the laser head by arrow keys and bring it on top of the material. And of course we should have enough space from the laser head in order to prevent hitting the material by the laser head. And the next step would be to adjust the table height to the focal point of the laser head. And for that purpose, there is a focus tool in the toolbox, and with these focus tools, as you can see, there's a step on these focus tools, and this will just sits on the steps on top of the laser head, and you have to adjust the table head in such a way that the bottom surface, the bottom side of the laser tool touches the surface of the material. So while we're holding this focus tool, we just move the table by a crank wheel and bring up the table until we see this adjustment properly. Here we can have a closer look. So this is how we place the focus tool on top of this step, and the bottom side of the focus tool should touch the surface of the material. This is a right focal distance, and as long as we use always the same material, we don't need to adjust this height again. But if you change the material to different thickness, different size, so we need to just carry this adjustment every time before doing any laser processing. So after that, we need to find the file we transferred to the laser machine in the screen. So, and for that, if we just light up the screen, we'll see a file named Bird1 on the screen in front of the file. And if you want to change the file, as we mentioned in the video which covers the operation of the keypad, we press menu, we just go to File Manager, we press Enter, and we find our file from the list. As you can see, there is multiple files in the list, This is the file we're looking for, and we press enter and press enter again, and there is a square in front of the file name, and that shows that we're using unimmediate mode, and we always process the file from a certain position on the working table. The other part of the adjustment, speed, power, we don't need to touch anything, and the next step would be to test the area where we want to just process the file. For testing the position of the graphic on the material, we just press test, and the laser head just follows a pattern around the graphic, starting from the right top corner, which is set in the software, so we can move the material to the right position where we can actually have some processing on the material, and then test it again, and we can see that we are inside the material. So the file name is there. We already did the focal adjustment, and the next step would be to close the door and turn on our accessories, which is all connected to the same extension, and we just have to switch on the power. So at this stage, our accessories are on, our door is closed, the position is all set, the focal distance is all set, and we just have to press the start button. As soon as we press the start button, and the laser processing will be started. First was engraving, and then now it's light cutting for marking on the material without cutting through. The last step would be the cut through the outline. And here is our little bird. There's a process and finished.